Hollywood turns to Qatar. Is Disney bringing back James Earl Jones with AI? And Final Destination Bloodline, plus all the politics of the day. You're live with the guy every day at 12 p.m. Central Time. And we're right back here with Nat and the Guy, which is our main show. That's with me and Nat. Why do you say hi?
Hello.
And that's at 9:15 Central Time, where we go over all the pop culture and news of the day. In the morning, you kind of get a cold take on it. I just gather stories. I read the articles live and give my live opinions. At nighttime, things are a little bit more fleshed out. Why don't we get right into the first story? Cash-strapped Hollywood could turn to Qatar, which is making moves in Cannes.
Yes. You want me to read it?
Yeah, I want you to read it. You read all the articles. That's what you're there. You're my AI assistant.
So Qatar, the tiny Arab state rich in oil and gas, and recently offered to replace Donald Trump's Air Force One with a 400 million jet, likened to a palace in the sky, is at Cannes, signaling its ambitions to take its nation's film and TV business to the next level. The Qatar Film Committee, or Qatar, or whatever, however you say it, an official body that is part of the Media City Qatar hub and is tasked with driving growth of the country's entertainment industry, is at the festival and led by Hassan Al-Thawadi. He is the Qatari lawyer who oversaw the 2022 FIFA World Cup soccer tournament, which was considered a triumph for the country. Al-Thawadi has now added a movie biz to his oversight. Furthermore, two sources familiar with the global film scene said top players in the Emirate have initiated discussions with U.S. showbiz executives about co-financing and producing original content.
Okay, this is pretty huge because of the way that Qatar and a lot of the Saudi Arabian countries or the Middle Eastern countries are kind of coming into sports. They're absolutely dominating sports properties such as boxing. They've completely took it over, pushed out some of the biggest promoters that have been there for decades. If they make the decision to go into Hollywood, they're willing to break a lot of things to try to get it right, meaning they will spend money until they learn the business and can bring things into Qatar. They're looking for other types of businesses outside of oil money. I think they really need to start building their own studios in Qatar that can really benefit from the scenes, desert scenes, things like that. But overall, they're going to need to jumpstart any movie studios they have with purchasing content from festivals. Typically, the major streaming services go to these festivals, and one streaming service will very often buy up all the content there. If Qatar is there bidding on these things, there's no way movie studios are going to be able to compete because Qatar will lose money on their endeavors just to kind of monopolize their foothold within the industry. Do you have any thoughts on this? And I know we talked about Hollywood yesterday a lot and how all these companies were leaving on a global basis and even to other states. But if you have a major player like Qatar coming in on this is going to really empty out Hollywood because they're going to give a lot of incentives.
Yeah. Well, we might not be able to see as many nude scenes anymore.
Well, I think if Qatar does do filming and things like that within the country, you might not see as many nude scenes. But if they purchase films from outside, I think they're willing to, what would you say, be a little bit more flexible. Okay, and let's go with the cover story we had today, and that was Disney and Epic Games.
Yeah, so Disney and Epic Games using AI to bring James Earl Jones' Darth Vader voice to Fortnite.
Okay, and there's an aspect of this I liked, but overall, I think it was a missed opportunity. James Earl Jones was absolutely beloved. That voice was the voice of CNN, and it really made Darth Vader. Since you had the new Darth Vader, it just hasn't hit the same.
And Mufasa.
As well. I mean, he has probably the most iconic voice. So whoever has the rights to remake his voice into AI, which would probably be Disney, should really capitalize on this, but not with Epic Games in such a fringe franchise. Really try to bring the historical value back to Star Wars. Advertise how you're bringing James Earl Jones' voice back to Darth Vader in the actual Star Wars series. Star Wars is dead, but they can revitalize it if they'll lean into George Lucas's 60 scripts they absolutely torched and refused to make, number one. But number two, go into classic characters, even some of the characters that aren't around anymore. Use AI to bring them into the films. it could be a crafty way to use a lot of practical effects, and with actors and other things that aren't available, use AI to bring them back to life and bring the original fan base back and really pay homage to the original IP. What's going on now with Star Wars, they've actually torched it to the ground. I would like them to kind of revitalize it into a lot of the original content and things that they had. What do you think?
I don't agree with bringing dead actors back or passed away actors back using technology. I think it's disrespectful to their legacy because you don't know what they would have actually done, said, how they would have moved. They already tried to do it in Star Wars once with that other guy that used to be a commander in the Death Star or whatever it's called. So I don't agree. And it looked weird also with Carrie, what's her name? Carrie Fisher. I didn't agree when they tried to bring her back as Leia. I just don't like it when I just leave them be and find new actors, build a new legacy. Don't rely on, like Disney always does, their old properties, their old actors, their old people. Just build up someone new, do something creative.
Yeah, but
stop looking to the past to save your current company.
They failed to have the opportunity to really pass the franchise along to the new actors. It's completely failed. They're going to really have to at least have cameos from original actors, a lot of the original IP, even make it look like the original Star Wars, and then try to transition it to a new era again. It's at such a low point right now. It's going to be very hard to save, and it's going to cost a lot of money to save. I've said in the past, George Lucas spent a lot of money writing 60 scripts that were really dark and made for adults. I think that would be the perfect reset. It would be a huge financial commitment by Disney itself, but it would be the right move. That franchise as it stands now is absolutely dead, and the Marvel's franchise and the Marvel universe is, if not already there, at least 90% of the way there. It's headed in the same direction. Disney is the IP killer. So, yeah.
And I think Fortnite is probably bigger than you think it is, but I don't think that's a respectful way to bring it back.
Well, you know Fortnite's a video game, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But it's big with the young people.
Well, I understand it's big with the young people, but I would have liked to see them bring him back in the actual series or movies. And it's just his voice, so it's not like you're really trying to bring back the actual actor and things like that, so it's not going to really look funny. AI is pretty good when it comes to voice recreation. I know me and you disagree on AI a lot. I don't necessarily like AI, but I do use it. You're absolutely against it. I force you to use it on some things when I can to speed up processes, but I was also watching a think tank on YouTube today, and they're really against it. It's an independent media think tank. I believe Whitney Webb and a bunch of other original content creators, a lot of them from South America, really against AI and showing the pitfalls. They're in the carrot phase of AI, trying to get people to use it, but it's really going to dumb down the population overall. Once they're addicted to it, they're going to forget how to think for themselves, do research for themselves, and things like this.
And I think that people who don't use AI and continue to be, creative, be able to do things by themselves, will end up wowing everybody else who's not creative and just relying on it when they see things that come out of someone who's using their brain instead of a computer's brain. It's going to make a difference. And we've talked about it too, how original content and actual people will become important parts of the content creation process because it's something AI can't recreate 100% ever. It's not human.
But also there was a little bit, we do have a little bit of a historical reference when it comes to digital art and things like this. When people started first making arts on their iPads and their, what's it called, Wacom? The ones with the pins? Anyway, when people first started making art digitally, like with Photoshop and things like that, people said it wasn't art. It's far more accepted now, and it's almost a must-use when it comes to graphic design and things like that. It is a must-use. So that transition did happen, and there still was a place for traditional art. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this unfolds. How much do the actual elites and the big corporations that are controlling this AI, are they actually going to release? Are they going to continue to dangle this carrot, or at some point are they going to pull it back and pull the rug out from underneath everybody and dumb it down? So I definitely use it for research once in a while. I use it for thumbnails, things like that. So.
I just like to do research the old-fashioned way, open a million tabs, read as much as I can.
And that's
because I think that's how I actually find real news. Because I've tried to use AI in different ways to do research, and it's not the same.
Well, yeah, I still open I still use traditional methods to do research as well. But even the traditional methods that you say you're using is they've incorporated AI. So when you're reading an article, when you're even the content that's being curated on X, TikTok, or wherever you might be getting news, even ground news, all these news agencies that are curating news for you or writing articles that you're reading. This is actually a lot of AI is put into that. Even if you get a original research paper, AI has been incorporated into the research paper by the author themselves. So avoiding AI overall, I don't know if it's even possible anymore.
Well,
I mean, you can feel like you're avoiding it, but it's in everything you're consuming.
well, I can go read books. But I'm the true
Even
traditionalist conservative that doesn't want to go and use weird technology.
But even books, the authors are incorporating AI into the research and editing of their books and things like this.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But still.
okay.
Walker. Hello, Walker. So Walker asks, and we actually talked in depth about this past two streams, and I think we're going to get into it in this one as well. In the past two streams that Guy does in the morning. So Walker asks, Guy, what is your opinion of the Afrikaans who have come to the USA?
Oh, yeah. I really went into it the other day. I did a huge segment on this show. Everybody started tuning out as I did it,
Yeah.
but I just kept going. I had like 4 or 5 articles. And it's something I'm starting to keep up on more and more, just like the Alberta separatist movement. I'm really into that news story, even though it's a lot more fringe because governments don't want to talk about it because of the long-term implications between government and their citizens. I'm also very interested in what's going on in Ireland with their censorship, their mass immigration. It's really a special case because it really has a chance to really boil up to something more first before any other EU countries. As far as South Africa goes, this is a great story because this has been happening for well over a decade. We're going to get into it later, but maybe I'll just get into it now. There's been multiple documentaries made about what's happening in South Africa. The video clips, well before this became a recent issue with Trump, there is a mountain of evidence what's been going on in South Africa. The bodies have absolutely piled up. The statistics are undeniable. The videos are undeniable. The eyewitness testimony is undeniable. People are talking about it outside of South Africa, but they've now criminalized talking about this within South Africa as hate speech, and
They're trying
to, and it can be prosecuted under hate speech laws for treason, which would carry a severe sentence. So they're really trying to cut it down. But today we were going to talk about, let's see the 2 documentaries that I had written down here. Do you see them there?
Yes. So Katie Hopkins.
Oh, hold on. Oh, I found it. Okay, so the 2 documentaries are, and the one I've talked a lot about on here is from Lauren Southern called Farmlands. I believe it was made back in 2017 before this was an issue.
2018.
And then Katie Hopkins also made a documentary which was just as long called, how do you say that?
I don't know, Plasmur, I think. It's in Afrikaans, so I don't know.
It's called Plasma.
The ending fields, because I can't say that word.
The ending fields. The naming of Katie Hopkins' documentary probably really hindered it because nobody can, number one, say the word. But Lauren Southern's documentary did get more widespread uptake at the time. It's just governments around the world did not want to shine a light on this issue until Trump, Elon Musk, and some UFC fighters from South Africa recently spoke up against this. It's shining a major spotlight. Trump is imposing major tariffs on South Africa, specifically citing what's going on with the farmers there and how the bodies are currently piling up. The last few days, we've done eyewitness testimony of what's going on the ground. 6 men took advantage of a woman in her own home and took the life of her husband. And that was in her own words last night. We showed that. That was pretty crazy.
Last night.
The Katie Hopkins documentary is currently on Rebel News' YouTube site. They've republished it, even though it's an older documentary. And Lauren Southern's site, you can watch it in full. It's called Farmlands. It's on YouTube. Mm-hmm. So the left is really trying to say this isn't happening. The South African government saying this isn't happening. But this is one of those 80-20 issues, and it has a decade of evidence behind it with full-length, high-budget documentaries that are showing what's going on the ground before this even became an issue. That's how you know these documentaries aren't made up, or it's just not to catch headline news. These documentaries have really come and gone and didn't get much media exposure at the time, but now they're having a resurgence because everybody's saying what's going on in South Africa is fake, and it's not. So I highly recommend watching those 2 documentaries. Actually, today I just kind of put the names of the documentaries and who made them just to kind of give references for people to go watch about it, because I've been talking a lot about South Africa the last few shows.
Yep. And I love Katie Hopkins. I aspire to be like her when I grow up.
Well, why don't you just tell everybody who Katie Hopkins is?
She's a very outspoken British journalist. She used to work for the BBC, I believe, and then she got sacked because of her big mouth, and she just says everything as she thinks, as she wants to. She goes and does crazy things completely against feminism, and
she's on podcasts constantly, and she says very, very brash things that are extremely funny and would get anybody else canceled in a heartbeat. I believe she got canceled.
She got canceled a lot. She got her family even got harassed by the government themselves. They had to move. She had a huge journey and issue, but
she was a huge supporter of Tommy Robinson before being a supporter of Tommy Robinson was popular, and everybody found out Tommy Robinson was actually telling the truth about the immigration issues that were going on in the UK. Okay.
And Walker says there are similar cases of this kind of situation in Zimbabwe too, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, although their population of white people is smaller, but yes, there is similar type of discrimination.
It's a little bit different because you have a lot of, how would you say this? You have a lot of militant groups that will kidnap kids at a very young age and have them do away with their parents. And then do a lot of horrific things, so they're brainwashed into a high level of violence. And then the leaders of these military organizations will kill different populations to really control the country and stoke fear into the hearts of people. South Africa is a little bit different because it's just the basic civilian population doing this to one another. So it's highly racialized in the sense that it's not single organization that are going out and doing this to farmers. It's kind of governmental organizations that are doing it, but also individual people that are just doing it because of racial motivations and things like this. So South Africa is definitely a special use case there. And there was no slavery in South Africa. So that also gives... at least there was no slavery of whites against blacks in South Africa. There was slavery of blacks on blacks before the whites ever got there.
And there was apartheid. So let's not forget that one.
Yeah, but apartheid was just having separate groups. And apartheid, actually, we're seeing what's happening now that they kind of took down apartheid. They can't run their own nuclear facilities. They can't run their own farmlands. They are not able to reproduce the amount of food they need for the country because their international aid is now being cut off because the light's being shined on this. They're unable to buy external food sources because the government has no money. The power is going out all over the country because they don't understand how to properly run not only the nuclear power plant, but their entire power grid. And this is going on in almost every sector. Rather than utilize the white workers that were there to train the black workers and work cooperatively together, they just completely got rid of the white workers, the white farmers, the white people that were running the nuclear power plants, and put black people that were untrained in their positions. You needed to have these two groups really work together for the success of the country, but they didn't. So,
yes.
Okay, let's go back to pop culture because that got pretty heavy really quick. And the next story is going to be Mission Impossible. I've been sprinkling in Mission Impossible stories throughout the last few days. This one was pretty interesting. Why don't you read the headline?
So Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, set for China release on May 30th as trade tensions ease.
And this is huge. So it's showing that China is starting to comply with this 90-day pause, which is good. This is a huge break, especially if the tariffs for some reason get put back on, Mission Impossible was able to sneak in there into that market. This is going to really rise their numbers on a global basis. And Mission Impossible really needs that because it's a 3-hour plus movie. That means it can play less times throughout the day per theater. So the total amount of money it's able to make in the same amount of time other movies is actually decreased because of the running time. So having another market which isn't available to all movies because you need special approval to be in China and the Chinese market is going to help bring that total up to where they need it to be to recoup the money that they've spent.
I'm guessing they're not angry at Tom Cruise anymore for wearing the Taiwanese flag? Oh, they did change it? Oh.
So, yeah, if you don't know the controversy that happened in the Top Gun movie, which was a lot like Mission Impossible because a lot of practical effects. That's how Tom Cruise likes to make movies. In the original Top Gun, he wore a tiny Taiwanese flag on his jacket with an American flag. The Chinese government didn't like that, and they said if they wanted to put that out in China, that they would have to change the flag. So I believe they did change the flag, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
But don't quote me on it. Do you have anything? Oh, you're going more into depth tonight about Mission Impossible, yeah?
Yes, because someone keeps trying to get me to talk about it.
Well, somebody told you to talk about Meghan Markle, and now I had 16,000 views.
Okay.
Okay, let's go into Final Destination Bloodlines. And I wasn't too hyped about this movie, but the reviews are starting to come back in the early box office numbers. And independent critics that I generally trust are coming back and saying it's actually a good movie.
Yeah, so Final Destination Bloodlines bigger at 5.5 million in US previews, according to the box office.
And the main actor that's in Final Destination Bloodlines is, what is his name there? Tony Todd. He was best known for Candyman, so this is more from my generation. He's been in a lot of movies. He's a fairly famous actor, but this is going to be his Final Destination's Bloodline kind of farewell. The director actually let him write himself out of the movie into the script, which was kind of cool. That really does help kind of promote the movie. There's rumors this might be the final destination. It was done a lot differently, so it didn't feel so cookie cutter, supposedly. It's getting good reviews, and I think it's doing well at the box office. If it does well and it's broader release, they'll definitely do another one. So that being said, I wouldn't expect this to be the last Final Destination as it's kind of being reported. Definitely the last Final Destinations for that particular actor, I would say.
Never watched any of them, so
they're all made in Vancouver.
Oh.
Yeah, and in the one scene at the very beginning of the movie, there's a huge earthquake on a bridge, and that's the Lionsgate Bridge that completely crumbles apart. But it's a very intricate scene. They actually closed down the Lionsgate Bridge to film that scene.
They close it down a lot, though.
For protests, usually, not for movies.
Or for people that want to, end it all. But I remember the school I used to work at was across the bridge. I used to live downtown, and then I had to drive over the stupid bridge. And when they closed it, you have to go all the way around the whole island, basically, to go get to the other bridge.
Yeah.
So I hate that bridge.
There's another bridge about 10 kilometers.
It only has 3 lanes, and they keep switching them throughout the day.
We're talking about the Lionsgate Bridge in Vancouver, Canada. It was in this Final Destinations movie, but it's an iconic bridge that was built by the Guinness family. It was originally a toll bridge, and it was the only way to get to the North Shore, which is the next city across the water. But eventually, the Guinness family donated it to Vancouver, and now it's...
and Guinness as in the beer.
Yeah, Guinness is in the beer. It's probably the most iconic landmark in Vancouver, I would say.
One of them. Science World is also iconic.
Yeah, but the Lionsgate Bridge, everybody kind of knows it.
Walker says, that movie against Chinese planes was good. Not a great movie, but it was like a great action scene with dialogues in between.
What was that movie?
I don't know. He didn't put the name up.
Oh, Walker, put the name of the movie you're talking about.
Yeah, because I don't know what you mean.
I'll comment on it a little bit. If he does put the name of the movie,
yes.
Read the name of the movie and then read me that comment again.
Yes.
Okay, and let's go into the next article. Yeah, Daily host John.
So Daily Show host Jordan
One second.
Klepper?
Read a little bit of this article after, because I seen the headline. I thought it would be interesting to have some cultural commentary on this, and I want to kind of see what happened. I didn't actually read the whole article. I didn't have time.
So Daily Show host Jordan Klepper, I think, wanted to understand young Trump voters. I expected a bunch of dicks, but the cruelty wasn't there. So Jordan Klepper has spent more time following Donald Trump around the country than most of his ardent supporters. For 8 years, the Daily Show host and correspondent has pulled up to the president's rallies and interviewed his craziest MAGA-draped cheerleaders. For the segment, Jordan Klepper fingers the pulse. In more than 100 videos and 6 full-length specials, he's engaged with their conspiracy theories and debated them on policy to the tune of 232 million views. For his latest road trip, Klepper sought out a specific type of Trump supporter, young men. Trump gained 15% with males under 30 between 2020 and 2024, flipping the demographic from blue to red. Klepper found them on college campuses, at UFC fights, and partying in the Gulf of America, also known as Gulf of Mexico, during spring break. His journey into the manosphere is documented in the special MAGA: The Next Generation, out May 19th on Comedy Central. I had such a cynical perspective of the young walking into this thing, Klepper says backstage just after hosting an episode of The Daily Show, still wearing the suit. I expected to be confronted by a bunch of D space X.
Okay, in one moment, I'm going to get you to continue to read, but I just want to give a little bit of context here. What happened in the independent media and things like this, and it was really a political awakening in the United States of men, and it was done through logic. The political awakening of women, or the capture of the woman's mind through the Democratic Party, happened before this, and it was really done through emotion. So I'm expecting when he's going to start talking about this that a lot of these people that are seen to be dumb and that may be trolling on YouTube or online that, is kind of dumbed down to get clicks, are actually very intellectual and know exactly why they're supporting Trump and the conservative movement. But let's hear what he has to say.
So he says, I expected to be confronted by a bunch of bad people, 22-year-olds who want to rail on trans people in sports and kick out all the immigrants, but the cruelty wasn't there. Instead, Klepper found college-aged kids who are less deeply rooted in conservative ideology than drawn to the excitement surrounding Trump. This MAGA movement is inherently empty, he says. There's no ideology behind it. There's attention and fame. Much of the support for Trump from young voters, Klepper argues, is divorced from the political rhetoric and even the consequences of government. Put simply, Trump is the most famous person on the planet. He's the most compelling character in their narrative of the last decade.
And I don't think that's true at all, because once Trump is going to be out of office here, because he can't run again, you're going to see the rise of the intellectual MAGA movement through a J.D. Vance or a J.D. Vance-like figure. Even if Ivanka Trump gets in there, she's not going to be speaking like her dad, and her husband are much more intellectuals. I'm very against, what is his name? Her husband?
Jared Kushner.
Jared Kushner. I don't like Jared Kushner. I don't like Ivanka's husband. I don't like a lot of the people Ivanka associates with and things like this. That's why we have to keep a very close eye on them. We're seeing a lot of Trump 2028 hats, and I don't think it's for Donald Trump. I think it's actually to troll, to rile up the left, and then at the last minute put a pink 2028 hat on Ivanka and have her run as the first female president. Now, I don't know how that would work with her and J.D. Vance, because J.D. Vance is really the intellectual lifeblood of MAGA right now. And a lot of males do know why they support MAGA. They're anti-immigration. They want to bring manufacturing jobs and higher paying jobs back to the United States so they can support a family on their income, perhaps with a wife having a home-based business that can raise their kids. This is the new model of the conservative right, and that's kind of what they want. They understand they can't go back to the complete traditional model of women don't work while men do work, but they can perhaps bring in the majority of the income while women work from home and raise their kids.
Oh, before we continue, Walker is leaving because his lunch break is over,
okay.
but
Adios,
he said
Walker.
he meant Top Gun.
Oh, Top Gun, yeah.
So Top Gun, that movie going against Chinese planes was good, not a great movie, but it was like a great action scene with dialogues in between. And I think that's what most guys are looking for in action films.
Yeah.
And yeah. So he meant Top Gun, the second one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Top Gun was, it was just a solid gold star action movie, and that's what they're kind of calling this new Mission Impossible movie. They're saying it's a gold standard action movie, and they really left politics out of it, it sounds like, completely. And even in the promotion of this movie, Tom Cruise is refusing to talk politics, which is a big plus for this movie.
And goodbye, Walker. Thank you.
Adios, Walker. Okay, what was
but
that?
yeah, so basically this guy is just trying to, and I think that's going to be their next move, because it's projection confession through projection, what they're always doing, as your favorite Robert
Yeah,
Barnes
they
always says. So he's trying to say, oh, they're all dumb, they're all stupid. There's no ideology there, when in actuality, there's way more actual political discussion and conversation, even amongst the young, especially because the young men are starting to go to church, they're starting to engage in debates, they're starting to really think about things and why they have those positions, and the left is completely
well, and kind of what's happening here, they're trying to frame it in a way that they're intellectually dumb. There's nothing there. After Trump's gone, the movement's gone. And that's completely untrue, because what's happened with conservative men and the traditional movement in general is first principles. First principles when it comes to debate, first principles when it comes to moral standards, non-moving moral first principles when it comes to basically everything they're thinking of, from politics to religion to morals, things like this. You can see this in the debate sphere. You see this in the political sphere. The left is completely unsure on how to approach this, because their whole motto was merging politics and their morals together, and having them move from the top down. With the traditional conservative movement, they know what their moral standards are. So if politics swerves too far to one side or the other, religion kind of holds it back in there, and these traditional moral values hold it within these guardrails. And that's why now the conservative right, or the traditional right, is now a very heavy anti-war movement. It's very much pro-health through the MAHA movement and things like that. All the traditional liberal principles are now captured by the conservatives, and the liberals don't know how to get it back, or the progressives don't know how to get it back. Mm-hmm. They should stop trying to fight them on everything and just say, these used to be our principles. Well, why don't we work together on these things? And then identify some areas where they do disagree, where they may have 80-20 on that issue. But right now, the 80-20 issues, where 80% of the moderates actually support women's sports being for women, no puberty blockers, things like this, mm-hmm. and anti-immigration, things like this. The progressive movement's really dying on these hills of these 80-20 issues, and it's backfiring on them.
Yes.
Okay, what's the next article we got up here?
So U.S. probes Live Nation, AEG, Bad Times 19, concert cancellations.
Yeah, so they're talking about this was collusion against a lot of the big players during the Jibby Jab era about refunding of tickets. I didn't have a chance to read the whole article. Why don't you read a little bit? Why don't you skim through it, do the opener, and then figure out where the main...
So U.S. Justice Department conducting criminal antitrust probe of Live Nation, and AEG's response to concert cancellations at the beginning of the bad times. Live Nation confirmed while denying any collusion on Thursday. Probe is focused on whether the live event companies colluded on refund policies for canceled concerts. Collusion with competitors can be a criminal offense under antitrust rules. Probes do not always result in charges. Live Nation executive Dan Wall said it's not illegal for artists, agents, promoters, and ticketing companies to work together to solve unprecedented challenges of a global pandemic.
Yeah, it seems like a natural kind of collusion where they're going to have to refund these tickets or not refund these tickets, and figure out where the policies between the different companies, whether it was the person selling the ticket or the venue and things like that, they have to understand when they're giving out ticket refunds, they all have to basically say the same thing, so one party isn't necessarily liable for giving a refund back and things like this. So I was surprised they're doing this probe. It may have a big factor to do with, I believe Jay-Z is one of the main owners of Live Nation. Mm. And we know the whole Diddy thing is going on right now, and they may start coming after Jay-Z next, and they may want to come after him financially first.
Yes.
So, okay, let's continue to go down. And the next one is Canadian campers going elbows up. I just thought this was retarded.
Canadian campers going elbows up this summer amid U.S. trade war. Some outdoorsy Canadians, so the annoying ones, are planning to build their tents with elbows up this summer as the season unofficially kicks off this long weekend.
Okay, so I just wanted to kind of read the headline here, and the next one's going to go into Canada too. So, elbows up was the slogan that Mark Carney used to steal the election. He ran against Trump instead of against his opponents. He said elbows up because that's kind of what you do in hockey. It's a dirty move. As soon as the election was done, it was elbows down, asses up, and he's taken down most of the tariffs on the U.S. as we reported yesterday. I actually confirmed that actually did happen, so I was reading more about it this morning. So Mark Carney, and your leader that you voted in to fight Trump, has now put his elbows down. Yet you're still trying to implement illusionary tariffs that aren't even existing for Canada. Canada is so much on the brink of financial collapse right now. They're having to lower the majority of their tariffs. They don't lower them all. There's still a few left here and there, so they can say, oh yeah, we still have tariffs. They don't want the general public to know they've lowered all the tariffs. And the Canadian media is really not talking about this en masse. I'm having to go to international media to kind of find this out.
Yes.
That being said, the next story is going to be a Canadian story as well.
Yes. It just says fake time, fake order. Parliament is how Canada's government.
Okay, so
works.
Mark Carney's here, and this is like the 4th or 5th time he signed one of these big orders saying, oh, I'm dropping carbon tax. And what was this one for now?
Doesn't say.
I had it written down here. Anyway, he signed another order today. And he's making this big display for the media and everything else. The problem with Canada is they don't actually have executive orders. This is just a big charade he's doing for the general public. How Canada works is they would have to go through Parliament. Parliament's not actually in session. They all went on vacation right after he won the election. It was expected that they weren't going to go on vacation and they would actually try to stop the Canadian economy from collapsing. Instead, he's signing these fake orders and put Parliament on pause. So he's taking a page out of Donald Trump's book, but at least Donald Trump's executive orders are actually real things.
Yes.
So this guy is a complete fraud. It's a little bit ridiculous how he's doing this. And today, I didn't know if you knew this, another riding flipped 2 weeks after the election. So they had an initial riding that they did a recount on, and the Liberals took it by 1 vote. Now there's another riding today they took by 29 votes. I think they need one more riding, and then they have a majority government. They're only doing these recounts in Liberal districts. They're disqualifying a bunch of votes. They're not sharing how they're disqualifying these votes. Nobody's going to trust the Canadian electoral system after this. And it's a shame because the Canadians really had the gold standard for elections for decades and decades, and for immigration as well. Other countries used to come over and study how Canada did their immigration. They had just the right amount of immigration. They properly integrated those immigrants into society, and it was a benefit for everybody. And over the last 10 years, they've completely destroyed their immigration system, and now they're destroying their electoral system as well. These are 2 major reasons why we left Canada, but the Canadian government's been stepping over my red lines for over a decade now, so I just had to get it out of that country, and I'm glad I did. Okay, let's go into the next story, which is Germany. Now, read this one cautiously if you can.
So I was going to say, I don't know how much I can read.
This isn't actual real story, because when I read the headline, I said this had to be fake news. So I went into Grok, asked Grok, then I did some other research online after I asked Grok. And yeah, this happened back in 2023, and a couple of the facts were off, but it was none of the major facts. All the major facts here were correct.
So SUI, space, societal empathy. Germany is crumbling under a crisis of its own making. For example, 8 Islamic migrants who did horrible things to a 15-year-old were found guilty, but given no jail time after the judge determined they were homesick.
Okay, so the one fact that was slightly off, it was 9 immigrants, not 8. 8 were let off with probation, doing no jail time after gang raping this woman. One of them was given an extremely short sentence. What the judge actually referenced in their final hearing wasn't homesickness. It was the government's failure to properly integrate immigrants. So it was the government's fault, and their age. They were minors, so they were between the ages of, I believe it was 15 and 17. And because they were young, he gave them a light sentence, which was probation. This woman is going to be forever changed, and it is a tragedy that the German government itself is actually condoning this.
Essentially.
If I had this sentence after something like this happened to me, I would feel like the government itself is raping me. I felt like that in Canada when they were coming after freedom of speech.
And in the UK, and I'm guessing in Germany too, there's been these young girls who've been through this that have come out and said exactly like that they feel exactly that way. So
in most of these countries, though, these major grape gangs and things that are going on, they're just not prosecuting them at all. And in the UK specifically, a lot of the members of these supposed gangs are actually part of the police force. This is another scandal that came out. They were fast-tracked into the police force because of their immigrant minority status, and then come to find out they were part of these gangs.
Of course. Also, Rafa's...
One second. With this particular case itself, they actually went all the way through with the prosecution, and they still failed to give a real sentence that would deter anybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rafa says, hi, Darth guy.
Ah.
So thank you for being here, Rafa.
Thanks for being here, Rafa. One leaves and the other one comes in.
Yeah.
Which is nice. Walker was
it's like
just
they're
here.
doing shifts.
Yeah. They must have different opposite lunch breaks. Okay. So that was probably the craziest story. And that was one of those stories. Sometimes I get the headlines cold. I get you to read them and I give my cold opinion on it. With that particular story, I did research and I was shocked at the sentencing that was given out to those people, which was non-existent.
Yeah, but right now in Mexico City, it's hot as balls.
And I'm wearing a sweater.
Yes, but it is very hot.
We got the air conditioner on, so. Okay, let's go into this FBI Kash Patel, and this is the first clip we actually have for the day. Why don't you read the headline, and then we'll listen to the clip.
So Benny Johnson, if you don't follow him, go check him out, says breaking FBI Director Kash Patel announces the FBI will be moving out of the J. Edgar Hoover building in Washington, D.C. There's 11,000 FBI agents in D.C., removing 1,500. Every state's getting a plus up. The FBI is leaving the Hoover building, unsafe for our workforce.
And this is huge because Robert Barnes, who's a constitutional attorney, talked about how do you actually functionally drain the swamp. And that is you need to drain Washington, D.C. All these bureaus and these agencies that are in Washington, D.C., they're funneling massive amounts of NGO money and other government money to them and building this political cartel, so to speak. So that what they need to do is they need to spread these agencies all over the United States, not just the FBI, but the CIA and a lot of other agencies. Also, the Virginia agencies need to be spread out around the entire nation. And some of them need to be put in red states, some of them in blue states. So the power is kind of disbanded and not centralized in one place where they can all coordinate together and have political prosecutions against people. Okay, let's play it.
Is 38,000 when we're fully manned, which we're not. In the National Capital Region, in the 50-mile radius around Washington, D.C., there were 11,000 FBI employees. That's like a third of the workforce. A third of the crime doesn't happen here. So we're taking 1,500 of those folks and moving them out. Every state's getting a plus up. And I think when we do things like that, we inspire folks in America to become intel analysts and agents and say, we want to go work at the FBI because we want to go fight violent crime and we want to get sent out into the country to do it. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're doing. In the next 3, 6, 9 months, we're going to do that hard. And, you know, I didn't know that I was going to do this, but I'm going to announce it on your show anyway. This FBI is leaving the Hoover building because this building is unsafe for our workforce, and we want the workforce.
You just gave up a big nugget
we
there.
want the American men and women to know, if you're going to come work at the premier law enforcement agency in the world, we're going to give you a building that's commensurate with that. And that's not this place.
Okay.
Look, the FBI is 30.
And when he says he gave up a big nugget there, what do you think he might be referring to?
I don't know. I was supposed to see Dan Bongino there.
He's the
I know, but it's just odd
director
to see him.
Oh, so like when I heard this is the FBI building. They're saying it's unsafe for their workers to be there. They know they have allies within the FBI. They also know they have political opponents in the FBI. But that building has been captured for a long time, so I would expect it to probably be bugged in almost every room. They've probably found a lot of bugs and things like that. So having all the FBI consolidated into that one building, if there is an operation going against trying to undermine the FBI from the former heads of the FBI, maybe that's what he's talking about. Now, this is just speculation, but it can't hurt to move everybody and decentralize them away from Washington, D.C. I think this was a great move. Also, I think this is going to have a big uptick in military enlistment and things like this. People that want to be part of the FBI or the CIA usually do start in the military. So I think this is good overall, and it's nice to have the FBI director and assistant director on TV explaining their motives, why they're doing this, why this isn't really politically motivated, but it's good for the entire nation. Okay, the next one. Oh, this was probably an older clip, but I had never seen it. And you can see this woman's brain breaking in real time. And just to be clear, as far as religion goes, I think people should have the right to wear their mask or whatever it's called.
Burqa.
Their burqa, or have their traditional beliefs. But also, people do need to question why do they have their beliefs and things like this. And even though she couldn't really answer the question properly here, I bet you she went home and she did some research so she can answer it today, perhaps. And if not, maybe she changed her opinion.
Do you think Christians should have, or Catholics should have their beliefs questioned? Like why they don't accept homosexuality?
Oh, definitely. And that's how you, the Christian National Movement has had their beliefs questioned a lot. And that's why they've kind of risen to the top of the debate sphere, and they've been able to answer these questions very directly. I remember when that movement was first coming up in the debate sphere, they couldn't answer a lot of them.
Sometimes I don't agree with their answers.
I don't agree.
I don't think it's as well thought out as they think it is, because they rely on the Bible too much.
Somewhat, but they really refer back. They don't refer to the Bible when they're in. If you watch a debate against two religious people, they'll refer to the Bible. If they go against an atheist, they won't refer to the Bible at all, but they will ask the atheist what is their non-moving moral standard, which is usually a contradiction for the atheist. Okay, let's just watch this clip real quick.
I cover my face out of my own choice. I choose to cover it, and partly because I'm a Muslim, and being a Muslim, our Creator in the Quran does say to cover yourselves in a modest way. And I feel...
And in Catholicism and things like this, it's outlined to dress modestly as well. You just not to this extreme, and it's just not one-sided. Men and women are both expected to kind of hold these tenets of dressing modestly and things like this, which I think is much more fair in its implementation and things like that, and has a lot less contradiction.
And in the Jewish religion, I mean, Orthodox Jewish women can't show any skin other than their hands, and they have to wear a wig.
Yeah, and a lot of the reasons it's not for men and men can show a little bit more skin is typically because men had the working jobs and things like this, and you can't completely cover your body when you're working out in a field. You do have to wear a t-shirt and stuff.
But also the burqa is not even traditional dress for the places that have implemented it. So
she talks about that a little bit as well.
Because that wasn't actually originally in it even.
No, it was just said, she says she chooses to cover her face and hands, which there's a debate within Islam if that's actually how it's supposed to be. Let's continue to listen.
I believe covering your face is part of dressing modestly to avoid attraction when you go out.
So the danger is I might be attracted to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. The reason there are so many scholars who do feel that the hands and the face do not need to be covered, but there are also scholars who say that yes, that it should be covered. And I feel it should be covered because the most attractive part of anybody is the face.
So is there a danger that males in the audience are attracted to every female in this studio's face who's here? Are they putting themselves in some kind of...
Not necessarily every female face, but yeah, it could stir some sort of...
Passions?
Yes, absolutely.
Why would it not stir passions in a woman to see a man's face?
Well, it's about the burqa, isn't it, and about the woman wearing a veil.
Yeah. And
it's about why women are wearing a veil.
Yes, but I'm interested, if it's about equality, and you feel a sense of liberation, don't you? Why should men not be required to cover their faces too?
It's a good point, but I wouldn't question that. If this is how I understand what the scholars have said, then I would do it.
And it's God's will? It's
God's will. And if you out of your free will choose to be a Muslim, then that's part and parcel of it.
And you're closer to the Prophet, you feel?
Absolutely. You emulate the Prophet's life.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. And in the end, she had no real reason why. She ended up appealing to authority, saying, well, if the scholars say so, then that's the way it is. And the Democratic left is in a very similar place to this woman. what they said during the jibby jab era, and they're still saying to this day when it comes to climate change or the jab, things like this, they're saying follow the science. The science says. We have people that are educated. They're telling you you're not as educated. You can't do your own research. Things like this.
Because it's become
if this
a religion.
woman could have, and there is a proper way to maybe articulate this argument better, but if she could have articulated herself or do the research and then articulate it in the future, it sounds a lot better and a much more reasonable argument rather than just an appeal to authority. Appeal to authority no longer works in the general debate sphere anymore, and it really doesn't even work in a modern context when liberals have really destroyed science to the ground, and appeal to authority or appeal to academics alone does not work. Academia has been captured. False research papers that are falsely being funded are trying to drive narratives with these things. People don't necessarily trust them. So you have to maybe have some statistics, some science on your side, but you also have to have common sense. It really has to be a pronged, intelligent approach when you're making these
Arguments.
and things like this. Okay, let's go into the next. What did you think about that? Are you going to start wearing a burqa?
No.
I basically have you wearing a burqa. Yeah.
How?
You stay in the house all the time. You never leave the house.
Yes, because I'm editing all the time.
You're
Because
allowed
there's
to
only
not wear.
two of us
You're
who
allowed
do
to
this.
not wear your burqa in the house. So basically, I allow you not to wear your burqa in the house.
Thank you. That might actually get clipped and might get some people worried. It's not that way. It's just I'm the one that edits things, and guys, the pre-production side. And editing usually takes longer than you ever expect it to.
Don't lie. I
when
make
you
you wear your black veil because you're up all night in the blackness of night.
You're starting to sound stupid.
Okay, let's
But no, I do think and I've spoken about it, about the Cannes Film Festival, about the Met Gala. It is still important to leave some things to the imagination, and the extreme to which it has been taken nowadays with nudity and just everybody showing off everything at all times. You open Instagram and you see women's parts that you don't want to see.
Oh yeah.
Even just their butts. I
Yeah,
don't want to see a girl's butt
people
in
wanna
my face all the time.
Yeah,
and men also get tired of that, I'm sure.
Some younger men want to see it. And if they want to see it, they can go search for it, but it shouldn't be pushed so prevalently into society. You should have to make a conscious effort to go find content like that if you want, not just accidentally stumble upon it. Because if I can accidentally stumble upon it, so can children.
And young women have to learn that that is a lie that feminism has told, that's empowering. It's not empowering.
Well,
and in 20 years, you won't find it empowering, believe me.
Marriage used to be empowering.
Yes.
Now having sex with every guy that you can is empowering.
And showing off every inch of yourself 20 times a day is empowering.
Yeah. Okay, let's go into this Trump suspends asylum system.
So Trump suspends asylum system, leaving immigrants to face uncertain future, according to the AP News, which is a biased news source, as they all are.
Let's hear a little bit, though.
So they arrive at the U.S. border from around the world: Eritrea, Guatemala, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Ghana, Uzbekistan, and so many other countries. Interesting that now they're highlighting all the actual countries people were coming from, instead of just, the poor South Americans. They come for asylum, insisting they face persecution for their religion or sexuality, or for supporting the wrong politicians. For generations, they had been given the chance to make their case to the U.S. authorities. Not anymore. They didn't give us an ICE officer to talk to. They didn't give us an interview. No one asked me what happened, said a Russian election worker who sought asylum in the U.S. after he said he was caught with video recordings he made of vote rigging. On February 26, he was deported to Costa Rica with his wife and young son. On January 20th, just after being sworn in for the second term, Donald Trump suspended the asylum system as part of his wide-ranging crackdown on illegal immigration.
Okay, that's pretty
blah,
good.
blah, blah.
Okay, now that being said, this is a good thing because we've been showing you Keir Starmer on our night show and how he wants to stop illegal immigration, how he wants to stop the asylum, but he can't, and they need to change laws. He needs parliament. Donald Trump just did it right here in one day, and he shut down the border long before this. So you just need to completely suspend your asylum system. That doesn't mean you don't let immigrants in. America is still allowing more immigrants than any other country in the world to the magnitude of 10. A lot of immigrants are still welcome into the country legally. You just can't allow them in illegally. And this asylum program has been so manipulated by the progressives that it's completely dysfunctional. Most people don't know the international laws when it comes to asylum, and that is when you want to claim asylum, you have to claim asylum in the first country you land in that has the ability to claim asylum. Mm-hmm. Nobody's going directly into the U.S. because it's too hard to get to the U.S. It's the same with Canada. Very rare can you go directly into the U.S. And claim asylum. Usually you have to go through Mexico. This would require you to claim asylum in Mexico. It's also the same in the EU. So it's very interesting that countries like the UK and Ireland have more of an influx than any other country. And why is that? Because the migrants don't want to claim asylum in France where they're forced to stay in tents. They want to go to the UK and Ireland where they're getting free housing and free money. But that's actually violating the asylum laws because they're supposed to declare asylum in the first country that they can legitimately claim asylum in. Usually that would be France or Spain because they're coming across the border from
the ocean.
Northern Africa.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
And
also this completely should null and void a lot of these asylum claims. There's over 10 million asylum claims in the United States. The court system can't handle it. So this is one way for the U.S. to actually catch up and kind of reset their system.
And if you are truly seeking asylum because of persecution or security or whatever, you would take, like, as soon as you get outside of wherever you're trying to escape, that should be good enough, quote unquote, at least for the beginning. But the fact that, yes, they land in Mexico or even Central America or Spain or France, that makes you question the whole system because once you're safe, quote unquote, why not stay there? Because it doesn't have the actual thing you're looking for. So how many and how to prove that what you're claiming is true?
Yeah, and it seems like as these stories are piling up, when I'm talking about asylum, Trump's policies, Canada's policies, Mark Carney's policies, the legislation of both countries, it seems more and more to me like that story we reported a few weeks ago. What was the agency again? That said the Canadians should take all the immigrants from America?
Amnesty International.
Amnesty International suggested that asylum seekers should go to Canada and claim asylum in Canada and that Canada should take them. The system is kind of sitting up where that's becoming more and more of a reality. And I think we may see a mass influx of immigrants into Canada from the United States potentially.
But I mean, that's Mark Carney's wish come true.
Well, that's what the Canadian progressives have always wanted. Canada is even more of a difficult country to get to for asylum seekers or illegal immigrants than any other country in the world because not only is Mexico before it, but the United States is before it. So it's very hard to get to Canada. But in this particular case, this negates all that, and they're going to have all these illegal immigrants coming from the United States potentially directly into Canada. And this would be the first time Canada would have the opportunity to literally increase their population by millions, and that's kind of what they want. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go into the next story here, and that is skip the farmland story because we talked about that with Walker already.
Yes. The WestJet or? Because I have it pulled up.
Traffic. Oh, no. We'll do this one first and then we'll go back to the protesters.
Okay, so former WestJet employee awarded $65,000 for wrongful dismissal over bad times 19 jibby jabs.
And where did this happen at? I didn't have a chance to see.
Alberta. So an Alberta court has ruled in favor of a former WestJet employee. WestJet is not plane. What's it called? Airline. WestJet is an airline company who claimed she was discriminated against when the company terminated her over refusal to receive a jibby jab because of her religious beliefs. Dong Yi, interesting name, hired by the company in 2010 and in 2021 when the government of Canada mandated jibby jabs for all air transportation companies. She refused to comply. Yi filed a jibby jab accommodation request form with the company on September 20th, and they denied it.
Okay, so this is actually pretty interesting because I wasn't sure where this happened, and now it's coming out that this is happening in Calgary, which is Canada. Typically, these...
WestJet is a Canadian airline company.
It also operates
terrible.
in the United States.
And it's really bad.
It's actually pretty good in the sense that...
They lost my luggage.
Yeah, but it flies to places. I used to have to take WestJet all the time when I worked in underground mining and in oil, and they fly to places no other airlines will fly to, and they have really small planes so they can get in and out of smaller airports. So maybe as a larger airline company, they're not good, but they do provide a service no other airline typically will supply in Canada, especially. That being said, I was very surprised that this precedent was set in Calgary and in Canada. Most of these precedents are being set in the American system, which is kind of creating a natural defense in case another emergency comes up like this. Major companies will be less likely to comply if there are major awards and precedents set within the legal system. Canada has completely neglected any kind of restitution for people of jibby jabs, things like this. It's extremely hard to get. They don't want to set the precedent within the Canadian legal system or court system. But Alberta is a special case. As we talk about a lot, Alberta does have the separatist movement. It is very conservative. They didn't have the same uptick of jibby jabs and things like that. So the fact that they can set a precedent in Alberta while they're still connected to Canada sets the precedent for all of Canada, which is a really, really good thing. Even if Alberta separates, that precedent will have already been set in the Canadian legal system.
And the Premier of Alberta, Daniel Smith, was one of the first, and I believe one of the only, I mean, there's a few others, but that has spoken about the need to, change the ways they were going about the jibby jabs and all the
Well, there was a huge backlash. They shut down Alberta. That the border protest was really big in Ottawa, but it was also huge in Alberta. They had a bunch of fake pew charges against protesters in Alberta, and they really prosecuted everybody extremely hard with laws that really overstepped the government's legal boundaries and things like this. Okay, let's go into. I'll just cover this quick because I covered the George Floyd hoax recently, and Derek Chauvin may be pardoned soon. So I just want to keep up on what's going on with the evidence as far as the George Floyd hoax went. So if you don't remember, George Floyd and the BLM protest burnt down over $16 billion of damage, I think they did in the United States and U.S. cities. They intimidated the jury to giving a very harsh verdict against Derek Chauvin, the police officer that had the knee on George Floyd's neck, who he was trained to do that by the police force itself. So the negligence, if there is any, has to go to the police force itself. But this was some of the documents that weren't allowed into court, and that was the level of fentanyl in George Floyd's system. He actually
illicit substances. Of the bad illicit
of the illicit substances that were in his system. It was enough to kill more than a dozen people, and it was in this one gentleman. He also was shown on camera to swallow these illicit substances. We have to remember he was 230 pounds. The police officer was 140 pounds. So the fact that he didn't want to get off of him at any point, the officer had to be scared for his life at some point.
And it does says no life-threatening injuries identified.
Yeah, they changed the coroner's report, and a lot of this stuff came out later on. Candace Owens did a full-length documentary when she was with the Daily Wire. Mm-hmm. If you don't know who Candace Owens is, she's a female black journalist, and she did a very in-depth documentary on this, really uncovering a lot of this, and a lot of sleuth reporters started digging into it after she did that report. And there's more than enough evidence showing that Derek Chauvin probably shouldn't have gone to jail. So there's really a movement to pardon him now. It's going to be interesting if that actually happens.
Yes.
Okay, let's go into the next story. And there's only 2 left, I think.
Okay.
Oh, no. Let's go into the protesters blocking traffic real quick, and then we'll do the next story.
Do we need sound?
You can play it. We'll see if there's music or not. Yeah, it's fine. It looks like she has a ball in her bag or a backpack.
Okay.
Oh, they all do, so they're bigger than they are. Oh, wheelchair. And this is how you should deal with these people. Oh, I like this one. Okay, he stops. Nope, break your foot.
to me that they're always surprised when people actually start
I'm
doing
surprised
something.
people just don't drive right over them.
Well, they don't want any charges. We should not incite to violence.
No, I said I'm surprised.
Yes. But it's not their right. I mean, they have the right to peaceful protest. When you're blocking traffic, it stops being peaceful.
Okay, we can pause that and turn it off.
And I mean,
So
more and
I'm
more
always
people.
surprised because they literally shut down the city with like 10 people with radical beliefs can shut down a whole city, and a lot of the people that are in these cars are paramedics and doctors and surgeons and people that need to be at infrastructure critical jobs where thousands of people will die, and these people aren't really taking that into account. They could be responsible for a lot of people's deaths just by blocking traffic and things like this.
End
So
of life.
I just wanted to kind of put a spin on that and show that video.
And
Now,
I mean, for example, the convoy protests in Canada, they would always leave space for critical infrastructure vehicles or anybody that did need to get by, because a lot of them were themselves paramedics, firefighters, ambulance drivers.
So yeah,
doctors.
if you don't know what happened in the Freedom Convoy in Canada when they shut down the entire economy, they did leave one lane open for emergency vehicles and things like that. It was a very well organized protest, and that was the original reason I put that video up. I forgot. People need to start rethinking, and the right or the traditionalists are really starting to rethink how to do these protests. The trucker convoy was the model, a new model of how you should protest and do it responsibly. Violence went down in the city, crime went down in the city because they actually policed their own and policed the city in general. They left an emergency lane open, things like this. There was clothing and wash services that would bring protesters clothing and wash back to them or bring food to them, things like this. Also, there was another kind of protest that was happening.
France,
No, with
Norway, Ireland.
That was it. The Alberta separatist movement. So rather than just protest in the streets, shut down the city, shout and scream and have nothing happen, they're actually using the legal system to their advantage, and they're trying to bring a vote for separatism. Whether it works or not, that's far less important. Millions of people all around the globe are now watching and now hearing the gripes of Alberta and what they are so angry about and how Canada has treated them over the last decades. So it's bringing a lot of light to this, not only to the Alberta separatist movement, but to the bigger cause of how Albertans have been treated for the last few decades. So it's a really good way to have a modern protest that can actually have change. Mm-hmm. Okay, we can move on to the next one. And that's the pastor. This is a very special pastor.
So Lips of TikTok says, meet Carla Cheetham, a pastor who supports BLM, transgenderism, abortion, and illegal immigration. This is not a pastor. This is a radical left.
And this isn't just a one-off thing. This is all over Canada. They're currently trying to shut down independent and traditional churches, not just by burning down 200 churches in Canada, which is also happening in Australia and other places around the world. It almost seems organized. I'm not saying it is, but it seems that way. That's number one. But there isn't a government arm to trying to stop these independent churches as well. They're trying to take away their status as a church and as a tax-free entity. If churches in Canada speak up against abortion now, their tax-free exemption status will be taken away. This is their beliefs, and they should be allowed to have their beliefs. But the Canadian government is allowing these fake fraudulent churches to really emerge, consolidate power in them. I'm fully expecting the LGBTQIA plus 2, whatever else it is, to put the skin suit of these churches on. They've been preparing to do this for the past decade. They knew if their movement fell apart, it would fall apart based upon its moral foundation. If they put this skin suit on, they can appear to have a moral foundation, which they really don't have. And they're hoping to elongate their non-moral movement. Okay, let's continue to go.
Let me know if there's music so I can.
I'm a pastor. Of course, I believe that all lives matter,
Turn it
but
up.
right now, black lives
Good.
are the ones under attack. Of course, I take seriously God's command to welcome those who are foreigners in your land because you too were once strangers in a strange land. I'm a pastor. Of course, I believe in the separation of church and state, which means theology never gets codified into law. I'm a pastor. Of course, I believe in healing brokenness, but you will never hear about shame, judgment, or even sin at this church. I'm a pastor. Of course, I believe that all lives are sacred, which means that women and those who can bear children should make the decisions that they, their doctor, their family, and their God believes is best for them. I'm a pastor. Of course, I believe in the salvific nature of the cross, but it was because Jesus non-violently stood up to empire and refused to fight back or back down, not because some immature, unhealthy parent of a God required blood and guts. I'm a pastor. Of course, I believe we should be exactly as God designed us to be, which means that queer lives are worthy, divine, beloved, and acceptable exactly as they are. No exceptions.
Okay, and these churches are popping up all over. Currently in Vancouver, I mean,
Because she's from the States, isn't she?
Yeah, but I'm just talking about what's happening in Vancouver because Vancouver is really the tip of the spear when it comes to churches like this. Entire churches are being painted in rainbow flags with the black and brown on there as well.
So it's not
a
the Noah's
traditional
Ark one.
Christian imagery.
Symbol.
And it's just absolutely crazy the things they're putting on their little billboards outside of their church. It's all a bunch of LGBTQ propaganda, which goes against actual church values and things like this. So people really need to stand up against this and realize they're going to try to put the skin suit of the church on. This is why traditional orthodoxy and things like this, or traditional Catholicism, may have a chance to potentially fight against this, because there is more of a non-moving foundation in that than there is in these progressive churches.
And I mean, my opinion is that while Catholicism and the Vatican are not 100%, the greatest.
Yeah.
When
Especially
King Henry
with this
VIII decided to separate and begin the Church of England, I think that the downfall, that's kind of where it began.
Yeah, especially with this new progressive pope. I mean, I don't really, after looking into his history, I don't have a lot of faith in him, but we'll stand by and watch how he goes. But it's not the pope that necessarily determines everything. Okay, and we have one more story of the day.
Which one?
It was the Diddy story.
Oh. Yes.
And I'm using this to mainly talk about how this case is falling apart in general, in spectacular fashion. And it's surprising. It's almost like the government is throwing this case on purpose, and maybe they are. And there's been a lot of speculation to that.
So prosecutors want judge to end defense questioning of Cassie on Friday in Sean Diddy Combs' trial.
Yeah, and how is the prosecutors going to determine how long the defense can actually question this witness?
Because they only got a day and a half, so the defense should only get a day and a half. And also, she's pregnant.
But the prosecutors are the ones that called the witness. So they should have as long as the defense team, anytime a prosecutor calls a witness, the defense team should have as long as they need to cross-examine. And when the defense calls a witness, the prosecutor should have a longer time to actually cross-examine their witnesses.
I mean, in my opinion, from what I saw yesterday and what I've been following today, it's fine if the defense wants to keep going because their case is completely falling apart. So they can keep going to question her. It's not going to help them.
It's a lot of unmoral things that have been coming out in court, but actual criminal acts, they charged him with a RICO statute and with bringing people across state lines. Crazy charges that they're not actually proving with Cassie at all.
Not with Cassie, but they have a bunch of other witnesses.
Well, you put your star witness on first.
And it's interesting that Hillary's name and some other names are starting to come up. So I'm guessing this trial should continue. And that the defense should continue to tank themselves.
I hope you're right, and I hope that actual criminal things actually come out. But to this point, if the jury was to go back today, there's no way you can convict him on this. They haven't shown anything.
I think today more stuff came out.
I mean, he beat Cassie on camera, yet they didn't charge him with that. That was a guaranteed conviction of something. They've charged him with RICO statutes that...
Because that one was the lowest charge, so they didn't want to go for that.
But you have a guaranteed conviction. You can put more charges on top of that.
But I don't know if that would have made their case weaker by having a weaker charge.
This is crazy.
Up front,
she
'cause
hasn't
then
proven any criminal culpability of him yet. So I hope the other witnesses can, because I do want to see him go to jail, and I do think he is guilty of some things.
Yes.
But the state has not proven their case in any way, shape, or form.
But neither has the defense.
Huh?
Neither has the
The
defense.
defense doesn't have to do anything. He's innocent until proven guilty.
Yes, but they haven't been able to prove that she was
He doesn't
fully
have to-
willing to
He,
do
does,
that.
he doesn't
to do
have.
stuff.
He doesn't have to prove it. He can literally say nothing. I rest my case, and if they haven't proven anything, then has to be found innocent.
But this is just the first witness too.
So let's hope. Usually you start off strong though, because what happens over time with big juries like this is after they've been there 3, 4, 5 weeks, they say, what are we even doing here? They haven't proven anything. And then you put your star witness on the end, you've already kind of turned the jury against you. So these people are away from their families and everything else. Okay, let's wrap it up for today and hope for a change in the Sean Diddy Combs trial, because right now it's not looking good, at least in my opinion.
For either side, I would say, if anything.
I wouldn't. Okay. Thanks you for tuning in. I'm here every day at noon with Live with the Guy, where we cover pop culture and politics. And then we're on at 9:15 Central Time with our main show called Nat and the Guy.
PM.
It's me and Nat at 9:15 p.m. We'll see you here then.
Yes.
Adios.